Welcome to the Battlefield Show. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sammy Boy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, man. How are you?
Doing fantastic. We have some Battlefield news to go over today. We're going to be covering Battlefield 2042 Update 4.1, the patch notes, the changes, and what we can expect for Season 1, at least as far as the release date goes. So, let's jump right in. This podcast is a production of Uplink Media Group. Uplink is a podcast network dedicated to highlighting the love and experience of gaming and pop culture. Check out our other shows, Star Wars Uplink and The Forge, the Halo Infinite podcast, as well as our YouTube channels for even deeper dives into Battlefield, Star Wars, and more. YouTube.com/Uplink Podcast and StarWarsUplink.com. Still no specialist update or feedback loop, anything, which is very surprising. Like, I figured we would have gotten that pretty early on, unless they're just like, well, we had a plan, and then we announced that we had a plan, and everyone else said the exact opposite of our plan, so we had to go back to the planning board.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened. I expected that 100% to, to be given to us before the update, so now I'm not, like, are we still getting that? I'm not really sure what's going on now, so it's kind of a weird one, because we've got this update, and then now, the next update is presumably going to be Season 1. So, like, do we get that in between, or do they save that until after Season 1? Or, I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation. So, yeah, definitely a bit odd, but it almost doesn't surprise me at this point either.
Yeah. Considering we don't have any details on what Season 1 will be other than a time frame, it's very, very interesting time, but we'll get into that after we cover some of the kind of updates. It didn't seem to be like a overly heavy update for a lot of things, but it seems pretty solid, other than some of the PC performance issues that they have been addressing or announced that they are addressing.
Yeah, it seems like a smaller update for sure, but I think the changes they made all seem decent. There wasn't really anything in the patch notes that seemed wrong, so I was expecting definitely a smaller update after the last one was so big that there was just no chance this was going to be a bigger one.
Exactly.
I do think I was kind of a little bit underwhelmed at the size of it still, even though I was expecting it to be small, but it's still it's not like that the March update or whatever, there was literally like 5 fixes. So
yeah,
it's not that bad. There's still probably like 30 or 40 fixes at least. So yeah, it's kind of just like a meh update, like not amazing, and also definitely not bad. It's improved the game, so can't really complain. I just hope that the performance stuff, there's been a lot of like stuttering issues and stuff. I haven't experienced any, but I've seen it heaps. Like even in the in-game chat, people were saying like, "Oh, this is like unplayably laggy." So hopefully that gets sorted. But yeah, other than that, it seems like a pretty solid update. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I too am kind of, I don't know if the right word is disappointed, but it didn't live up to my very low expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, we all knew that this was going to be a smaller update considering the size of the last one. And what we said last episode was they just need to make sure they don't break anything drastically. They somewhat did that. I've seen a lot of people, especially on PC, that the performance is just to the point where they're like, yeah, I played a couple games, and then it was so bad that I was going to either, 1, stop playing the game, or 2, throw my controller or keyboard out the window. Those were the two things that I heard in terms of this update. But mostly, I mean, it's relatively solid. I mean, they just kind of some of the summary of the first section here. They said overall power of Boris's sentry gun has been reduced. Angel can no longer provide armor plates in his supply bag. Stock weapons now handle better through base recoil improvements. And I think this is honestly the thing that makes me hopeful around the future updates that this game has, is they removed 128 players for breakthrough in All Out Warfare, which is really good.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that. It's partially sad that like it hadn't worked out because I did like when I played it, I kind of enjoyed the chaos of it, but I also it
To
wasn't really like a
me,
balanced experience. It was like fun because it was like stupid, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
I'm all for it. I think it's a positive change. And I kind of think they've done the right thing by like, keeping Conquest 128 because I think that does play a little bit better. It's a little less like stupid chaos, and it's because the maps are bigger. It's still kind of works. So I think this is kind of like the good middle ground, and it'll just be interesting to see how it goes from, you know, whether people go, okay, now that we know 64 players is the only option, is that the better option or like what's the go? So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But I personally think it's a good change.
Yeah, I think overall it's good. If they were honestly, I'm sad that they didn't make the commitment to just remove it entirely from both experiences because I think All Out Warfare in terms of just the regular base 128 players, it didn't have a whole lot to it. It had more negatives to the 128 players than I think. I mean, Breakthrough had at least some fun moments, and it had something that was like stand out about it. Whether you loved it or hated it, it was something there. But the regular experience, it's just too big, and honestly, I don't enjoy it all that much because of how spread out everything is. So I think if they were gonna only do one, I would have rather had the base one. But it's good that they're starting to see and say, hey, 128 players maybe wasn't the best idea.
Yeah, it is like I kind of almost wish that I haven't read like further down the patch notes to see if they said anything specific about that, but I kind of wish they would like admit fault to it a little bit more. But it's also still good that they've kind of just said like, yeah, it didn't work. So it's a nice change of pace to see them at least being like, yeah, look, we were wrong and we're gonna fix it. So definitely positive signs. It's not the biggest, there's still a lot of that type of stuff they need to do, but like specialists and stuff like that. But yeah, good to see them admit defeat once in a while. I think.
It's a good humbling moment for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is specifically what they say later on in the patch notes. In this update, we're making multiple updates to the All-Out Warfare rotations. Our leading change is the removal of the 128-player version of Breakthrough. When reviewing the available experiences in All-Out Warfare, we felt that the 128-player modes are better suited for Conquest, where gameplay spaces are larger and where you have a more natural fit for the sandbox gameplay experience. I think they're missing the point there, but I'm going to continue on. In Breakthrough's 128-player mode, we feel that the value and impact of an individual player and squad is reduced due to the increased intensity and chaos of the combat. I think that's what makes Breakthrough so much more fun than the regular Conquest experience, is because it has that intensity and the chaos, and it actually makes it feel like there are 128 players versus Conquest, where it felt like hello? Like that one John Travolta meme looking around in the empty room. That's what it feels like. They also continue saying, when reviewing Breakthrough, we noted that the 64-player version represented a more tactical experience. Reducing our player count helps to remove some of the chaos from the experience, and in the combination with the reductions that we have made to the number of available combat vehicles, it means players are better able to hold the front lines more effectively. Players will also find more space to work together and fulfill their individual roles. As a result, squads in Breakthrough 64 have a better opportunity to work together to flank the enemy, place the spawn beacon, use their plus menu to attach suppressors, then clear and hold a point. One squad helping turn the tides as an example. We believe that the move to 64 players will bring back the pacing that helps celebrate these moments of teamwork and PTFOing. And we will keep an eye on how these changes help to improve the experience ahead of the start of Season 1. Interesting.
Yeah,
they also have
a lot there, wasn't there?
They also say further changes. Breakthrough 64 for PC, PS5, and Xbox X and Series X. or Series X and S, now have set map sizes for specific maps. Discarded Manifest Orbital Kaleidoscope will play the 128-player version, while Hourglass Breakaway Renewal will play the 64-player layout version. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that, actually. I didn't really think that, that wasn't something I even considered, but there are definitely certain maps that just work better in the 128-player mode. Kaleidoscope's one that jumps to mind. Like, the layout in the 64-player mode is actually, like, so dumb, because you start, like, in the top left, then you go down to the bottom, and then you go to the top right, and in the reality of what Breakthrough is trying to be, it's like one team pushing the enemy team back. There's no logical reason to go down instead of just going literally like 10 meters across to the next one. So yeah. I'm actually pretty happy with that they've changed they've pretty much chosen the best, each map kind of has two maps, and they've just essentially chosen the best of each. So that's a really good change. I haven't really played, like, I don't think I've played any of the 128 player maps now that I look at them.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they will play with 64 players. I'm not sure if they'll be like really spread out, but I think the difference was that they're more like longer and in different sections rather than being necessarily bigger, if that makes sense. So I don't know if it'll be too spread out or anything like that, because at the end of the day, there's still just two objectives. Like, everyone will still clutter to that one area. So it should work pretty well, I think.
Yeah. And I like how there's kind of like what you're saying, that they're making sure each of the maps, in terms of their testing, is on the preferred size that it needs to. Again, I think they're kind of separated from what a lot of the community wants, in terms of this is the map size for the type of content and experience that we want. Again, like when I play Breakthrough and when they had the 64-player modes, I was playing 64-player modes all the time. I wasn't going to 128 players, just because it seemed like every time I tried to hop on there, it was, what was it? Breakaway, the Antarctica map, which is just insanity on Breakthrough 128 players. Too much insanity, I would say. Yeah. If I was better at the game, maybe it would be more fun. But like, that's what I go for in terms of like, if I want like a war experience game, is I want it to be insane. I want it to be insanity. I want it to be chaotic, because that's how war is. I want it to have like the intensity and the speed of action, where you are surrounded by things all the time, versus how it seems to have been for a lot of 2042's history in specific, where you are just it's a waiting game. Like, I saw a tweet from Westy, and it was like tallying up how long it takes to actually get to the action. It's like 30 seconds on this screen, 15 seconds on this screen, another 30 seconds here. It takes like 2 minutes to get into a game, and then you have to run like 2 to 3 to maybe even 5 minutes, depending on the map, to the actual point that you need to go to. So by the time you actually get into the action, you're 7 to 10 minutes in.
Yeah, that's that's one thing that I've not really thought about, but it is actually something they really should try and fix, because like, if you play for an hour, you might only get 2 games, and like that might take 20 minutes each, and then there's literally like 20 minutes of like waiting, and that needs to be fixed for sure.
Yeah. So good direction. I'll be interested to see how it takes effect once I hop in and actually get some experience with it. But just terms of like thinking about it, it's a good step in the right direction, and I'm glad that they're looking at the numbers that they have. And I think too, is one of the things that they're looking at is, oh hey guys, we have a dwindling player base, and if we do have 64-player modes, specifically on Breakthrough, because I think a lot of people play Conquest over Breakthrough, but I'm not 100% sure on that. What are your feelings on that?
Well, I know that like Conquest is like the mode, like it's definitely more of a casual mode, and it's the mode that like the people who just kind of play on, play once a week will just jump into Conquest more often than not. I think there was a bit of a shift in Battlefield 5 that Breakthrough kind of became like the more enjoyed mode. So I think Breakthrough is like, in terms of like the core community and the really like diehard players, I feel like not obviously not everyone, because Conquest goes back so long that it's like such a staple. But I think a lot of people have kind of like switched. I know I've switched to like Breakthrough's now my favorite. But with the 128 player mode, you could never find games, and then because there was still a 64 player mode, but because it was split, like that was just not, you couldn't find any games of Breakthrough. So I've essentially had to play Conquest for like the last 2 months just because I literally have not been able to find games. Whereas I think this will be a good change that, you need less players to start the game now, which is good, but then also there's less like options, so it's just like everyone's funneled into that mode. And I think, hopefully, still like Conquest will still be the most popular, but I think that definitely it'll be a lot easier to find games of Breakthrough now, which is very exciting for me because I don't dislike Conquest, but like you said, it's a bit like looking around for people. That's kind of like the point of the mode. Like it's Breakthrough, you just know this is an area that we have to win or defend, whatever you're doing, and you just go there and there's always people there, and it's just good fun, and you don't have to like, there's no thought in it. It's just like go there and shoot people. That's fun. Whereas with Conquest, you got to spend half your time about like, oh, okay, they're capping that flag. Do I bother going over there? Because by the time I get there, all my teammates might be dead, and it's just like, it's almost like a game of maths. It's like, oh, which is the area that is probably going to have people, and then sometimes you go there and there's no one there, and it's like, oh well, I've just wasted like 2 minutes getting to that flag. So
yeah.
I definitely hope this brings a lot more to Breakthrough, because for me personally, it is now like the number one mode. Like Conquest is more of a casual mode for me now.
Yeah. And I think we said this early on, is that you were really pumped because historically you love playing Breakthrough on Battlefield, like in the past games as well. Because like I 100% agree with you too. Is like, I love the experience of Breakthrough because it's very clear what you need to do. You're either attacking or defending points. You are spawned very closely to those points. And it's just a fun experience to get into the action very quickly. And it's clear what you need to do and where you need to do it.
Yeah, and I think for me that like started probably with Battlefront 2, to be honest. I was more of a Conquest guy, but then with that having Galactic Assault, which was essentially kind of similar to Breakthrough. It was like an attacking team and a defending team on a more like linear shaped map. Obviously just fell in love with that, and then I think now, like when I went and played Battlefield 5, like I wanted that experience again. So it's also like it's essentially like Big Rush. It's like a bigger version of Rush because it's just attacking and defending, and Rush has always been my favorite. So just to be able to get that, because obviously Rush isn't in it's in Portal every week or so, but it's not in All Out Warfare. So to get that kind of experience like consistently is something that I definitely hope that they kind of like double down on, because Conquest will always have its place. It's like the staple of Battlefield, but I do think there's been a big shift in the last few, that it's not as much of a core mode to like that core community, compared to what it was. Yeah.
Conquest is the white bread of Battlefield.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I could not have said that any better. Like old reliable, you always know it's good fun, but there are better options out there.
It's good on a peanut butter and jelly, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, let's talk about this new date for Season 1. So we were kind of theorizing of when we may have been able to see this Season 1. What kind of size of the game is it going to be in terms of seasons, content? From just kind of let me say when it's going to be expected, and then I'll get to one of my theories about the size of it. But we are expecting the first season to be out in the first part of June, which they say, which again, their perception of time is very skewed. Up next in our update schedule is the release of Season 1, currently set for release in early June. We'll be back with a full overview and update notes closer to its release.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Early June for DICE is like August, I guess. So we'll have to wait and see when that it actually happens. But it was very like that's a really positive thing that I didn't think they would really mention that in this update. I was kind of, because we haven't had much communication, I was kind of expecting like, it's probably it probably won't be June, it'll probably be July, because they just said summer, they didn't really say when. So the fact that they've said not only the first month of summer but like early in that month, that's really exciting. So again, we just got to wait and see when that actually is. Like, I need an actual release date before I get too excited, because early June like could literally mean, like, I'm not even joking, that could mean August. Like, it's just it's so hard to tell with dice. So
considering a couple weeks really has been over 6.
Yeah. Well, that's what we worked out on the last episode. It was like, they said a few weeks or whatever, and that was it's been now coming in on like. It'd be close to like 8 weeks now, I think. So, yeah, very hard to judge their time judgment. But yeah, I guess the thing is, like, if they've said early June, like, surely they can't be wrong on that. Like, it's a different thing than saying in a few weeks. That's like very open ended. But early June, like, that almost has to be before the 15th, does it not? Surely. Like, that's the logic anyway. Whether they use that, I'm not sure.
DICE and their naming conventions and scheduling and all that fun stuff. Previously, I had expected it to be like we said a couple episodes ago, I think I was expecting July, like mid to late July. But I think, and I may be wrong about this, and I'm allowing myself to be wrong about this. I expect we will get it when they say it in early June, but it's going to be drastically less content than we hope for or the game needs. Because why would it release in June when they specified that it could be coming in summer and would allow them to get a lot more content? Because what can they really add? They could add maybe skins. They could add, I'm not even sure if they would add a map yet, considering all the changes that they've been making to the current maps, especially the leaked data mine stuff with the Canadian Rockies map, where it's literally just an open space and a big wall that is very easily defended, which is like, that sounds very familiar. Where could we have seen this before? So I think they're just going to be like, yeah, it's happening, and you can get these set cosmetics, and then season 2 will be a little bit bigger.
Yeah, it's a hard one to read, isn't it? Like, you'd expect with season 1 in any other game, and even with this game, that it's had like 8 months until the first bit of content. You'd expect a map, wouldn't you? But like, I don't see a map coming. I don't, like, eventually obviously, but right now I do not see them being like, hey, here's a new map. That's like, I'd be shocked. Like, I'd be fully shocked if they were like, there's a new map in June. That just doesn't really compute with my brain, with everything else that's been so slow. If, maybe the reason it's been slow is because they're working on this content, so maybe it will be a decent season, but I'm not expecting a hell of a lot. But I hope I'm wrong, because I do think it needs to just at least be a pass. It can't be like they can't have this be a failure of a season. It needs to be at least like the level that everyone's like, look, it would have been better to have more, but like, this is acceptable. You know what I mean? It needs, that's like the bare minimum. If it's like not much content and people are like, oh man, this is absolutely terrible, that's very, very bad for this game. Like, that could start to sort of signal the end, because they could just be like, oh man, we finally got to season 1 and people still don't like it. Let's just give up. So yeah, it's a big month. It's a very big month for this game, and I'm very interested to see what we actually get.
The fact that they're ignoring our podcast last episode, I think it was, where we said they need to have content overviews for. Actually, it was a couple episodes ago. They need to have content overviews for the game in May. That way, everyone knows what they're getting into, and they can be disappointed beforehand. Versus, because this is what they said: we'll be back with a full overview and update notes closer to its release. That is not good. Not good, considering we're recording this on May 19th. Updates going live here soon. today, as we're recording it, U.S. time at least. Sammy over there in the future. They announced it today. We only have like 10 days left in the month, so less than 2 weeks. First part of June, early June, would, in theory, like you said, up to June 14th or 15th, those first 2 weeks. So they have like 3 weeks before season 1 starts, and we don't know anything to it. Like, that's something that you announced much earlier in the pipeline, especially for this game where expectations are so out of whack with this season. Everyone's expecting something huge, which, I mean, rightfully so. This game needs something huge.
Yeah, it's a very it's been a weird situation because they got the communication back on track and then it's just dropped off again. Like, what? I don't know what.
Who keeps on going on vacation that needs to approve these communication posts?
It's so up and down, and it's like so confusing because communication before, even before launch, it was actually pretty similar. Now that I think of it, it was like really good in patches, and then they just went. Remember, they went quiet before they announced the delay. They just went quiet for like 6 weeks. Then when they announced the delay, they kind of got back into it, and it was fine. And then it's been like that on and off. And then obviously with the failure and the actual full delay of season 1, when they had that big announcement, one of the key things they said was like, we are going to be a lot better at communication. And they started really well, and it's just dropped off again. I don't get how you can, like, how is that not the most important thing? Like, they've said it that many times now. We're going to be better at communication, and it's free. You don't have to make content to communicate. Just tell us what's going on. You don't have to develop the communication. It doesn't take months to develop it. You literally can. I know there's like approval processes and stuff. So sometimes something that might seem like it takes an hour to us takes like a week.
Most of the people working on the social media posts are unpaid interns. So, like, seriously, guys, you don't even have any.
Yeah. It's just, it's so, firstly, confusing, and then secondly, just so frustrating. Like, I don't get how they can, especially because I know that the guys who are, like, the social, the media managers and all that kind of thing, the community managers, they're all really good at their job. That's why I don't get it. So it must be something deeper than, just Kevin and Freeman not doing their job or something. It's got to be, like you've said, it's got to be some like company policy where they just aren't allowed to talk about stuff past X date or whatever. Like, it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me. And it's going to be the downfall of this game if the content isn't what we expect. Because like we said last week or whenever, if they at least give us some sort of expectation, even if they release the same amount of content, giving us expectation will make that update better than if they don't give us an expectation, even if it's the same amount of content. So the fact that they aren't doing that, it's just mind-boggling. I don't really get it.
Or using our anticipation as like a hype up for it too, because you could seriously like use, we have a lack of communication. Let's take advantage of this desire for more news and say, okay, this week we're gonna tease this bit, and then or you could even just say, hey, we're gonna share different parts of a new skin that we're gonna be putting into the game with season 1, and then have kind of like that anticipation builds up around the announcement for season 1, and like as you just like give little pieces over the weeks up until it, and then it launches, and you're like, oh yeah, this is really cool. Now that we see the whole picture, makes a lot more sense now that they were kind of cryptic with this section. At least that would be something. Obviously, like they tried to do that early on with the promotion and stuff, and it would be like you said, there'd be these huge. Just a huge amount of news and communication, and just all of a sudden slow parts. It's like what's happened. It's like as soon as you guys start doing good, you pat yourselves on the back, and then you step away from the keyboard for like 2 months.
Yeah, there's been some times when it's like, when they had the changeovers and like Vince came in and stuff. That time I was like, okay, there's been a change in the hierarchy and all that, so I can understand.
That was out of the blue.
I can understand there being like a lack of communication, because they're obviously internally they're reshuffling and they're getting everything sorted, so that's like understandable. But like that doesn't happen every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? They don't reshuffle the hierarchy of the business in once a month. That doesn't happen. So it's like, oh, I mean, maybe it does. Maybe this is why it's such a shambles over there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just
every week we have a new marketing manager.
It's almost like employee of the month maybe becomes CEO or something. Like they just it's like a musical chairs of CEO or something. We
have a revolving door policy.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so weird because, like I said, I've said this God knows how many times on this podcast. Communication is free and it's easy. You don't have to. We're not asking you to write us a 500,000 word essay on what's going on. Just do anything. Just tweet something, like literally anything. Keep us in the loop. Keep us like hyped, and even the stuff they were doing before launch with like changing the logos to like that cryptic, like the sort of
slowly
noise
glitching
stuff.
out.
Yeah, like even if they did that leading up to season 1, even though that doesn't tell us anything, I'd be like, oh, okay, something's coming. You know what I mean? Like they haven't done anything like that. Even just like, yeah, even the slightest hint of what we're getting or anything like that. And it seems like there has to be something really wrong internally that they aren't allowed to, because I know like Kevin and that, I know they want to. I know that like those guys want nothing but the community being happy, and it has to be something deeper in it, and it really needs to be sorted out, to be honest.
It's like when you're a kid and you have this huge idea of how stressful or intense it's going to be to ask your parents for something. So you work through every single possible conversation that could ever come up, and then you go and ask them, and they're like, "Yeah, it's fine."
Yeah,
like that's like what that's like what's happening. Yeah, Dice is like, but we have to get this like perfectly right. We have to communicate all these things. When like literally you can just say like 140 characters, like, "Oh hey, this is what we're working on. We'd love to hear your feedback." Or like, "Oh hey, this is really cool, blah blah blah. We know that this is happening and we really appreciate your support, blah blah blah." Like, we're really hyped to let everybody know that season 1 is coming up soon and the content's looking great. Like literally you announced nothing and gave us no details, but that would do it.
Yeah, it's the feeling of being involved that we need. Like we need some sort of community feeling, and there just isn't at the moment. And I think like, yeah, even something like explaining really quickly why we haven't got that specialist feedback. Like just say something quite simple, like, we plan to get that out earlier, but even just like bullshit, even just say like, our heads down and been working hard and we just haven't been able to get it out. That if I saw that tweet, I'd be like, that's awesome. Like,
because that's a human aspect instead of a faceless company. It's like, oh hey, yeah, we're sorry, but we've been working really hard in the studio. Jeff's been out and needs to fully blah blah blah. Like, just give us a human experience. Humans appreciate humans and our understanding of human strife and problems. I mean, that's why we love video games. That's why we love stories. It's kind of like really tying itself to that human condition. And like you said, you can literally just like, oh yeah, our heads are down. We're working really hard on the specialist feedback loop. We ran into some new ideas and we had a breakthrough, and we want to make sure that's in place before the feedback loop comes out. Yeah.
Literally just make it up. I don't care if you lie.
Yeah.
I don't care if
it got lost in this dude's email, just like,
and they say like, we had this huge new idea, but they didn't. I don't care. That's still better than nothing. Like that would at least hype us, and then because we don't know what they initially planned.
Yeah, they didn't give us anything.
It seems real to us, and we'd be like, oh damn, they must have had like this really good idea. Like that's the type of stuff. It doesn't. I'm not saying like come out and every tweet is a lie. Like obviously that's not ideal, but they can get away with some stuff like that where it's stuff that we don't need to know is the truth or not. Like that, it's a perfect example. Just whether they say we got a new breakthrough or whether we say, yeah, like we've just been working hard and we it's not to where we wanted it to be, so we didn't release it. Like that's all you need to say, and it's not. I guess that they worry about like the look of the company if they're like, oh, they're admitting that they can't keep up with their own schedule. But I don't think, maybe a couple of investors and stuff might be like, oh, I'm not, that's not a good look. But I think most people in the community would be a bit like, okay, well, yeah, COVID's still going on. They've only just moved back into the offices. Understandable. And I'm glad they told us. And then we moved
or even
on.
use that. Like, oh, hey, we've been working hard getting everybody back in the office. It's good to have the energy and culture back in the same building again. We're really looking forward to eventually sharing the specialist feedback loop, or like something that they can easily say is, which is true. We've had a ton of new feedback and updates, and we've been looking at all of your feedback on the specialist loop, and we were taking in a lot of that into account, much more than we expected to get. So it's taken us a little bit longer to implement the changes that we want to. Like, that's 100% sure, like, true. I don't even work there. I have no context at all about that, but I know for sure that that sentence there would be true.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I just think that, I don't know, like, I think I got a feeling that they see the negativity, because obviously I know that you'll know this, like, as a creator, you'll read 100 comments on your own videos, and 99 are positive, and then there's one negative, and that one stands out, and you go, oh, damn, like, this video must have sucked, kind of thing. I feel like they do that with, like, they'll say something, and most, 90% of people are like, yeah, fair enough, whatever, and then there's, like, the 10% that are just hounding them, and they go, oh, well, we can't do that anymore. Like, people, the whole community doesn't like it, when in reality, it's the vocal minority. It's not, it's the people, and to be honest, most of those people are like the people who send death threats and shit, so it doesn't even, their opinion doesn't matter, you know what I mean? But I feel like they focus on that. I feel like they see that too much, and then they're now afraid to say anything. And they just need to not, I don't know. I think 90% of people in the whole world, whether it's gaming communities or whatever, they're accepting and understanding of stuff when something goes wrong, and you just say, look, like, we didn't do good enough and we're going to try and do better. I think most people go like, yeah, okay, thanks for telling us. Like, that's how most people react, and I feel like they don't think that, so they're scared to actually say it.
I just hope we get some bit of this, and I hope, again, we're never going to get this, but I hope that we get an explanation of why the specialist feedback loop is so delayed, because they literally say a couple of weeks, and last I checked, couple is 2, several is more than 3, so 1 is 1. It could only be 2 weeks in terms of, like, when you use the word couple, unless you're meaning multiples of 2 weeks.
Maybe they mean like multiple years of weeks or something. like
there are 52 weeks in a year. If you divide that by the days, and then you divide that by the number of employees, but multiply it by the number of senior executives, and then you divide that by the number of investors in EA, and you divide that by the number of loot boxes they sold in FIFA, and if you times that by losing the license to FIFA, and then you subtract Sims, and then you add Apex Legends, and then I think we'll see it in another 2 weeks. That from my estimations and my super waterproof calculations here, we're gonna see it in 2 weeks.
Oh goodness, it's a very interesting topic, isn't it? When it comes to their communication and stuff, it's just
you know what's gonna happen. I'm going camping at the end of the month. That's when they're gonna do it.
Yeah, probably, and it'll be like we'll record the podcast, and then the next day you'll go away, and then we'll just get this huge announcement.
Yep. They have like 5 maps, and they're getting rid of the specialists, and Battlefield 2042 is rebranding. And it all happened on that weekend I go camping. But I think with that, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Let us know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts on this update? How are you enjoying it? What would you like to see in the future for Battlefield 2042? When do you think we're going to see the specialist feedback loop? And what do you expect to see on Season 1 for Battlefield 2042? Let us know in the comments below or contact at uplinkpodcast.com. We'd greatly appreciate you leaving us a review as well. And we'd like to thank Ethan Clark for the beautiful thumbnail and all of you for listening. As always, we'll see you on the battlefield.